Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Hey, welcome to this episode of the Note Closure Show. As always, Scott Carson, excited to be here with you today. Today's I'm going to break down two sub-performing notes that were sent to me. I don't know about you guys, but I do spend time on Facebook and some of the different groups. People will post, hey, I got two notes for sale, or I got a couple notes. Who's buying notes? And a lot of time, they're crap. I'm just going to be honest with you. But you do find some decent deals. And the only way you know if it's a good deal, a bad deal, or a dud is just by breaking the deals down. So I responded to a guy and said, hey, yeah, it should be over. He asked if anybody was buying notes. He says, got two deals. They're in Illinois, which is not my favorite state, but these aren't in Cook County. So that's a bonus. And said that, hey, got a friend with two of these notes. They're sub-performing. I'll talk about that in a second. But the sellers want about 67 cents on the dollar, 67K, combined unpaid balance about 100. And I said, okay, let's take a look at it. Well, the first question let me answer for you guys and gals out there as we dive into this. You need to know what is a sub-performing note. Now, what is a sub-performing note? Now, a sub-performing note is where somebody has not paid on time. Now, I call it sub-performing. It's different than non-performing. There's a big difference here. If somebody's like 30 days behind, 60 days behind, I say they're sub-performing. They make a payment and there's always like 2 weeks late or right at 30 days late, they're getting caught up. I've had plenty of borrowers that were kind of behind the eight ball a little bit, a month to month. They're making it up before they go late, and that's fine. I'll consider that a performing note almost as long as they pay. But in this case, on the notes that the guy sent me, he said one is 60 days behind, the other one is 30 days at least behind. So I count them both as 60 days behind. Is the way I look at it. It means they're not performing. They haven't made a payment in at least 60 days. They're a month away or 30 days away from being in a non-performing status of 90 days late. Okay, so you almost have to price. Now, the guy was pretty honestly pricing it 67K. It's roughly at that point where it's already a non-performer for the most part. These aren't the prettiest of assets. They're also by far not the ugliest of assets. But let's go through the information provided so you can kind of see what it looks like. If you're listening to this, thank you. Thank you for subscribing and listening to the podcast. If you're watching, and make sure you hit the subscribe button now so that you're always up to date when we do these types of videos or types of podcast episodes as well. All right, because we love to share these everywhere. But make sure you subscribe to the channel or my following so that you're up to date on seeing different deals. So anyway, what do these assets look like so you have a bit of an idea? Well, this is in Lewistown, Illinois, is the first one. It's not bad. It's on pretty decent, about a quarter of an acre. This is a photo from 2 years ago. Actually, this is a photo. Actually, this one is actually soon. It's about 6 months ago, based on what we saw. Because it's actually, when I looked at online photos versus the actual Google, the online photos were a little bit older and the property needed more work. So whoever has bought this, and I'll go through the details, actually has started to fix it up. Okay. So that's a good thing. There's a lot more photos online of it before it was occupied, before it was bought and sold on terms. Okay. The other one is in Peoria, Illinois. It's not a bad looking little, White house. It looks the same. This photo, they didn't have any interior photos really for the most part, but you can see it's occupied. This is from last year. This note's a little bit more seasoned than the previous one. They got kids because they got this trampoline here. I don't think adults are just jumping out on trampolines for the fun of it, but that's okay. There's some, not a bad looking little house, not a bad neighborhood in Illinois. Either, like I said, neither one of these are in Cook County. So that's a bonus right off the bat. The fact that they're both occupied is not a bad thing. What will we do to get them back on track? Well, we'll talk about that a little bit later on here for you. So I'll show you. Both of these deals aren't, like I said, they're pretty normal. Cookie cutter, single family homes. When we look at the tape, both are first liens. They're contract for deeds. They're sold on terms, 20-year terms. Single family residences, both are owner occupied. The seller of these, I'm not going to give you the name. I know who they are. Have these both at 12% interest, 20-year loans. So the monthly payment's pretty good size. That is actually kind of a bit of a red flag based on some news that came out today, and I'll talk about that later on, but it's not anything that's a killer, okay? Like I said, both are owner-occupied. Both are about 60 days late, so they're considered sub-performing. And both of the taxes are paid up to date to mid-year, okay? Second half of the taxes are due. And in both situations, The borrower put $2,000 down each. Different borrowers, not the same borrower, okay? But they both put $2,000 down, and that's kind of the seller's MO. Get $2,000 down, finance them at 10 to 12% for 20 to 30 years. I mean, 20 years, don't get me wrong, is good. It speeds up a little bit. And like I said, the seller's looking for around $65,000, $67,000 for combined both, not individually, but for both, based on what they posted. So it could be a decent deal. So let's look at the Lewistown one, or the Lewistown one, not ton. Lewistown, I spelled that wrong. It's a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, 1,000-square-foot home built in 1930. It's on a 9,000-square-foot lot. This is a little brown house. Let's go back to the house so you can see. This is Lewistown. Okay. So that's a 3-1. All right. Let's go 4 here. Boom, boom, boom. Purchase price was $47,604. The current unpaid principal balance is $45,511. They put $2,000 down and then made a couple payments. Fair market value is around approximately about $50,000. All right. It's about $50,000. Rent rate's about $1,100 a month. Now that fair market value could be higher depending on what type of repairs the borrowers have made. There are more photos of the property prior to it being sold on terms. So hopefully the borrower's gone in and make some outdoor payments. I know right off the bat that they fixed the screen door because on the photo before, screen door was hanging off, which is okay. It's got a P&I payment of attractive, basically $502.14 a month. That's nice. Escrow of tax and insurance is $262 a month. Taxes are incurred, like I mentioned. It's about $1,100, $1,300 a year. It was originated just 6 months ago, though. That's the thing that's kind of a bit of a red flag. Originated in February of this year. They made roughly 4 months of payments and have fallen 2 months behind. That's the way to look at it. And that's why that 12% at 20 years, I mean, that's great for an investor to get a 500 plus month payment, which is great. But it's a little concerning because it may be a little difficult for the borrower. Now, I don't know what kind of qualifications the seller put the borrower through. If they may be Dodd-Frank compliant, we'll talk more about that later on. Like I said, 60 days late approximately. And like I said, it needs some cosmetic work, but it wasn't terrible. I mean, it's got the older wood paneling. There might be a basement on this one. I wasn't sure. Carpet's not bad. It's not a bad looking little house. It's going to be a great little rental. Not bad part of town based on what I could tell. Everything looked pretty good in the neighborhood. Okay, let's go into Peoria. This was that little white house. It says 1 bedroom, 1 bath, but at 1,496 square feet, I know it's bigger than that. It's a possible duplex because I did see a listing for the address part, B. It's actually in one, Zillow says it's 1 bedroom, but it's actually, it looks like it's a 4-bedroom based on other things I found. So they've actually done some work. It was built in 1910. There is a unfinished basement attached to it based on the original listing. Fair market value is approximately, once again, around $55,000. Wasn't really sure on that. I put that kind of, and it might be higher than that too, but about $55,000. Purchase price when they sold it on terms was $59,500. So I imagine it's somewhere around that 50 to 60 mark. This one has actually been around a little bit longer. Current UPB is $55,400. The P&I payment of $633.12 a month is extremely nice. Escrow payments of $196 a month. Taxes are paid up to date. Rent rate's about $1,000 a month on this one. Okay, and it originated back in 2021, October 18th of 2021. So it's been around for 34 months of season. So I like this one a little better. But once again, borrower is about 60 days late. Okay. Now it's not, that's right on that cusp. Could they get back on track, or are we going to go another month late? And they're going to be definitely in default at 90 days late. Okay. And you point, when I see something like that and I look at these things like this, what do I see when it being at a 12% at 20-year mortgage? That 12% rings out. Is there a way? Don't get me wrong. I like a higher interest rate. And yes, you're being the bank when you're owner financing these, but is it predatory? Did it put the people, 12% is more like a hard money loan. Okay. And so you got to keep that in mind. So here's, when you look at the numbers based on what's been told to me, what I've been stated, they have a combined unpaid principal balance of about $100,000. Their fair market value is somewhere around that 100, 105. Who knows? But it's going to be probably at least that. If you add the two P&I payments up, it comes to $1,135.26 a month. That's a combined annual cash flow of $13,623 if they start paying on time again. That's the thing. Okay. The seller, like I said, is looking around 65, 67%. If you pay 67, it's about a 20.3% cash and cash ROI. If you're using your own money, that's not a bad day, right? That's a pretty good day for anything. If you're 65, now, like I said, they're flexible. Maybe you can get it at 60. Maybe you can get a little bit less. I don't know. I haven't put an official offer in on these things, but I'm just going off of what they basically told. So 20% ROI is not too bad. That's if they just start paying. Now, if you can get the borrower back on track, or get the borrowers back on track, I should say, and they make up those 60-day late payments over time, a little bit each month, like a forbearance agreement, it could be as high as almost 24%, 23.7. That's just taking the monthly P&I payments of 14 months, not 12 months, over your $67,000 investment. That's first year, and then year 2 and beyond would be about a 20% of just making the monthly P&I payment. Okay. Now, the eviction process, if they don't pay once they get to 90 days, can take you, depending on what's going on, somewhere between 3 and 6 months. Now, the nice thing is that these are contract for deeds, so it's more of a tenant relationship versus a foreclosure process. Foreclosure could take you 6 to 12 months in a lot of cases. 6 months is usually going to be on the lighter end. You could always do a cash for keys for them to walk. Say, hey, just walk. If you're not going to be able to pay, we'll let you get out of here. But if you look at the property, what would you do after it? Combined rent is about $2,100 a month. That's being a little conservative. If that one is a duplex, you can probably get some more, but that's about what my rents are. Fair market value is somewhere around 100 to 105, depending on repairs that have been completed. If the borrowers are going in and fix these up, paint it, and put some TLC into it, they could be worth 120, 130. But conservatively, right now, I've been at about 100, 105. Okay. So if you do foreclose or evict and turn around and sell these assets, you're not really foreclosing because it's a contract for deed. You could see, somewhere making around probably 20 to 30,000 after your commissions and closing costs. If you sold them at 100 and you netted 90, you're going to make somewhere around that, 20 to 30,000 mark, somewhere in there. I don't know exactly. I don't have a crystal ball. I've not sent a realtor up, but that could be, if you're making 20 grand on a $67,000 investment, that's a pretty good day too, right? 20,000 on 67. Let's look at that. So if you're 20,000 divided by 67,000, that's a 30%, 29.85% cash and cash return. That's pretty good, right? So while it's not a hit it out of the ballpark, retire type of deal, it's not so bad. I don't know. That's not considering if you have to give any cash for keys or stuff like that to help them move, which is what you're doing. If you've got a victim go the longer route and then go through and fix it up, that's a different story. So we're just going off that. So what would I do? That's always a question people ask me. Scott, what would you do? Well, I'd want to have a couple questions answered during my due diligence. Why have the borrowers fallen behind? I'd also want to let me see the servicing notes. Have they been responsive to the server? I sure as hell want to make sure that these are a third-party servicing company. If they're not with a third-party servicing company, I'm not going to be paying 67. I'm going to be paying probably 60. Okay? Because I got to see what's going on. What's going on from the seller. The good thing that I did notice, if they're collecting escrow, taxes, and insurance, I did see that the owner of the property, not the borrowers, those have been paid. The taxes have been paid for the first year. So that's, they've got some escrow money in there that's going in towards taxes and insurance. Okay. But I really want to look at the financials. Okay. Can we get the borrower back on track? Can they get back on track? Have they communicated? Or do we need to look at an exit strategy besides eviction? Do cash for keys, if not being able to get back on track. And that's the thing. Some people just can't afford to get laid off. They're gone. If one's got kids, I want to have a heart, but I also don't run a charity. I donate to charities. I'm not one. Okay. So the possibility here is, looking at I would want to look at the loan package. What can they afford? Is this a predatory loan? Is what they have coming in on a monthly basis, is this monthly P&I, the cost for their housing, more than 43, 45%? I like to be at 40% or less for somebody. So if it is that, while a 12% interest rate is attractive, it might be a bit extreme. You might need to modify these things, because today the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau came out with that they're wanting to crack down on people who have originated contract for deeds because they call them predatory. And it was primarily kind of stuff what's going on in Minnesota. The article that the CFPB talked about was, that investors are targeting these religious beliefs, these Muslims or immigrants in Minnesota, and they're being very aggressive, higher interest rates and low down payments. They can't really afford it. It was kind of a bullshit article focused on one area. Yes, there are very unscrupulous people who, if they do those kind of things, are bad. But if you run a borrower through a RMLO, obviously you can't get a traditional loan for under 100,000. So that's the flip side of that. People want to get into a house, they can't go get a bank loan for 100,000. Contract for deeds or owner financing is a very possible way. And the reason I would do a contract for deed in Minnesota and Illinois, Minnesota, once you foreclose, it's a 1-year redemption period. You can't do anything in that property for a year. That's not a good thing. Illinois, once you foreclose, there's no redemption periods. Okay. But the reason they do contract for deeds is an eviction, which is much faster than a foreclosure. Okay. So this is why you might need to go back to these borrowers, look at the financials, say, what can they afford? Do we need to modify the loan? Do we need to drop it down to 9.9% interest? Do we need to take it from a 20 to a 25 to a 30-year term? What will that do to make sense? And you're going to have to evaluate that. All right. You can run the numbers yourself and figure that, put it in an amortization table really easy to see if that makes sense for you. Okay. That's the thing to look at. I mean, let's do that real fast. Let's just do it so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about. Let's go over to our good friends over at Google. So let's just do a 30-year amortization schedule. All right. Here we go. Pretty easy. So we did the first one. Come on. There we go. All right. If I look back here, actually, let's just do this. So the combined UPB is 100,911. Let's just do that. 100,911. We do a 30-year, and the interest rate we change this to is 9.9. And the loan start date, yeah, okay. So here's what you see. Now their monthly payment drops to $878. Okay, in a 30-year, $878 right there. If you do a 25-year, well, I won't let you do. If you keep it at a 20-year, it's $967, or $858, or $878. Okay. So let's just figure this. So let's say if we take 878 times 12 months, that's 10,536. You divide that by 60, let's just say 67,000. That's still a 15.7% return combined. Okay. It's a little bit different. One's got 2 more years of seasoning than the other one. That's okay. Hey, we're just going to extend, you're both behind. We're just going to extend these to a new 20-year mortgage or a 30-year mortgage. So you can still make a 16% return by dropping it down to 9.9 and keep them 30-year. Now, if you do it at a 20-year, 967 times 12 is equal to that is 11,604. Divide that by 67,000. That's a 17.3. So by modifying the terms of the deal, you're going to be making somewhere between a 15 and 17% cash and cash return by modifying. So that kind of makes sense. It all depends on what they can afford. If they're without a job, now you would want to use an RMLO. There's going to be some costs associated with doing an RMLO to structure those deals to make sure that they can afford things. But it's pretty simple. Look at what they have. I would probably still do a contract for deed because if it's a mortgage, you got to foreclose. So I still do a contract for deed, but I would adjust the terms, modify the terms of the contract for deed, extend the years, or leave the term the same but drop the interest rate if the borrower can get back on track. And that's what I would say. Listen, you're 2 months behind. I'll tell you what, if you can you start paying your existing payment? If you pay your existing on time and a little bit extra to catch up on these 2 months you're behind on, to do that and you're caught up in 6 months, we'll drop the interest rate to 10%. We'll drop it 2 percentage points. It'll make your payment go down to this. That's not hard to do. I mean, that's the thing. Do you want cash flow or do you want the asset? For me, I think the cash flow makes sense. But that's the big thing is if they're not making money, if they're struggling to get by, you might as well just go ahead and cut that limb off and say, listen, you're struggling to get by. I get it. It's more expensive. This is just not going to make sense. I can't give it to you at 6% or 5% because that's more than, you're losing money at that point, especially if you've got money costs. That's the thing you keep in mind. What's your money cost going to be? All right. So that's what I would do. I would review it. If you want to make an offer, hey, there's some different opportunities there for you guys. As always, you can always reach out to me. That's the big thing. Look, going back into this, reach out to me. But why the borrower's falling behind? Review the servicing notes. We go back through. Yeah, exactly. Might need to modify the loan to 10% interest rate and extend term. What would you do? It's a great return to reinstate a forbearance agreement. There we go. I forgot these things. So, like we talked about, modifying might be a good thing depending on term. Yeah, exactly. I'd rather have borrowers work to get back on track before I modify the loan notes. Yeah, exactly. Instead of evicting, offer cash for keys to get the properties back. Hey, I'll give you 2 months I'll give you your down payment back, $2,000, or I'll give you $500 to walk out instead of evicting. Give you something to move, something to be nice. I'd have a heart. All right. That's the biggest thing, because this seller, I'll tell you right now, it's not the only stuff they have there local. This seller's got a bunch in these 2 counties or 2 cities that I noticed. If they're structured in this way, they're going to have more non-performing stuff, and they're kind of primed for being in a bad situation if they're doing all 12% interest rates and not running them through an RMLO. Okay. But what you do with the property, if you sell them, fine. If you rent them, keep them as a rental, you want to do that, that's fine. Or owner finance the properties on another contract for deed. That's totally up to you. All right. That's totally up to you what you want to do and what you want to accomplish. Unfortunately, like I said, the value on these assets below the $100,000 or $125,000 point that a bank would come in and get financing on this stuff, or they could refinance you out, just not going to happen for the most part. Now, what you could do is see if there are any type of rental assistance programs or down payment assistance programs for borrowers in these areas. Sometimes you'll see that Illinois has had its fair share of those types of programs in the past. Okay. So get more information, guys. If you'd like to, reach out to me at scott@weclosenotes.com. That's my email, direct to me. You can always book a call and discuss this at talkwithscottcarson.com. If you have a deal or two you'd like for me to go through, feel free. Email me. We'll be glad to break it down here live on our podcast so that you can learn, but others can learn as well. To get deals like this, join our monthly membership. It's not too difficult at all to do that. Just go to noteumbrella.com, get signed up for $97 a month. It gives you weekly coaching calls, access to tapes, and other great things. Yes, we do see assets coming in on a regular basis. So, as always, thanks for listening and watching. Make sure you hit the subscribe and the follow button. And most importantly, go take some action, everybody. And we'll see you at the top.